Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time we're checking out a mod by the name of Doom EXP, a gameplay mode that introduces XP gain into Doom. Every enemy you kill will reward you with a set value of XP, acquire enough of it, and you'll rank up. A rank up is rewarded with an upgrade token, sometimes multiple depending on how far through you are, and that can then be ultimately spent on upgrading your weapons. This chiefly comes in the form of alt fires, and one of the earliest ones that you'll unlock will be, of course, the upgrade for the pistol, which in its vanilla form is actually pretty decent to begin with. The usual slow fire rate of the vanilla pistol replaced by a semi-auto function that's as fast as you can click the trigger. Said upgrades are acquired through a buy menu, and as you can plainly see, this contains much more than just weapon options. This contains a whole host of things from power-ups to permanent boosts, and intriguingly, they cost XP to acquire, something that I'll touch on a little further down the line. But yes, the pistol upgrade. As you can plainly see, you get double the pistol that you had before, and there's a faint whiff of the rise of the triad to the sprites. Coincidence? I think not. But the objective improvement here is that you can now just hold down the fire button to blast away at a reasonable fire rate. No longer do you have to continuously click and run the risk of developing carpal tunnel. If anything, I'd say that the early phase of Doom EXP makes you feel somewhat of a John Woo protagonist, not just with the dual-wielded pistols, but also with the slide ability that allows you to entertainingly glide around corners before plugging an unfortunate demon squarely in the face. Such satisfaction is no less dulled when wielding the shotgun, and even in its primary form, it boasts a rather pleasing, meaty primary fire, but that's discounting what happens when you upgrade it and unlock its alt fire. Yep, you heard right, that was a triple fire volley. The upgrade for the shotgun transforms it into a complete face melter, and it's no wonder then that the upgrade cost for this is a fair bit higher than the dual pistol. Whereas the pistols only require one upgrade token, this requires 5. And that, as you may surmise, takes a fair bit of saving up in the XP department. Now if you'll recall, the buy menu not only features weapon upgrades that you can spend tokens on, but also various power-ups and other quality of life upgrades that you can spend XP on. And therein is presented somewhat of a dilemma for the player. Do you spend XP on some short-term advantage that will get you through, say, a more hectic than anticipated early phase of a map set? Or do you hold out for those precious upgrade tokens, doled out in steadily increasing amounts as you ascend the ranks? In my experience, I discovered that with maps such as Equinox, I didn't really need to touch the XP buy menu for quite a significant length of time, and in that regard, the system here in Doom EXP seems quite scalable, with more than enough options available here to suit almost any given situation. And even further to that, there is in fact a setting here to jimmy the rate of EXP gain, which is pretty invaluable when it comes to tailoring this mod to any given map set. If you're running with a shorter than anticipated number of levels, you can jimmy that setting up to high. For a longer map set, you can scale it down ever so slightly and just ensure that the pacing of XP gain throughout the entire ride is a little bit more measured. Speaking of XP gain, you'll note that it's not just great gouts of blood that spurt from your enemies upon death, but also a few additional goodies. These can include extra XP tokens, the occasional medkit, even the occasional upgrade token for your weapons, and if you switch to the chainsaw, you'll note that it has a very similar effect to that of the chainsaw from Doom 2016 and the upcoming Doom Eternal, wherein enemies are transformed into glorious piñatas filled with health, ammunition, and armor. It's also on fire. I'm not entirely sure why, but it certainly looks cool, and if you upgrade it, the flame turns blue, and from what I can tell, it means that enemies basically explode into treats in a much shorter length of time. So it certainly got that going for it. Did I mention that this mod has a dog companion power-up? This mod has a dog companion power-up. You can pat it on the head to tell it to sit, and it'll love you unconditionally because it's a good dog. Then you can tell it to follow you, and it will because it's a good dog. And if it gets lost, which it frequently does, you can whistle, and it'll appear right next to you because it's a good dog. I think what I'm trying to ram home here is this is a very good dog. It's doing its best at any given moment. Even when you've got the opportunity to glory kill an enemy, because that's something you can do in this mod, and it accidentally steals your kill, because it's just so goddamn enthusiastic. Who's a good dog? You're a good dog. Anyway, where was I? Ah yes, attempting to awkwardly ramble my way through this mod. So you can stick a grapple hook on the shotgun. This is acquired through an EXP spend in the permanent upgrade side of the buy menu, and it is tremendously useful. You can grapple enemies to you, whereupon you can blast them in the face. If they're a chunkier enemy, I believe you grapple to them, and if you decide to grapple to a wall, you can fling yourself about all over the place. It is pretty good. And something that I didn't realize you could do for a while and was largely present from the get-go was the fact that double jump is enabled here and wall grab. I can imagine this being a heck of a lot of fun to use in conjunction with bigger, open, more slaughtery style maps, and I can also see it comprehensively wrecking the progression of any given level, but hey, if you want to do that, then that is entirely up to you. Further to all this, you also have the ability to dash. You get 2 dash boosts, which you can use in quick succession before a short recharge period, and yep, you can go forward, backwards, left, and right. And personally, I didn't really get a massive amount of use out of this ability. I much preferred sliding around on my knees like a discount John Woo protagonist, and I honestly feel like the dash could stand to be a heck of a lot quicker, because as it already stands, classic Doom guy is already pretty quick on his feet. I mean, he can run circles around most regular enemies as it is, and the dash here just felt a bit overkill. But that said, it's nice to have, and I certainly won't look down on anyone that gets good usage out of it. Anyway, circling back to the weaponry, you'll note that the super shotgun here can also take advantage of that aforementioned grapple hook, and it's a tremendously satisfying thing to use in conjunction with that wonderfully boomy alt fire. Just in case you're wondering, that is 8 shells in one blast. And let me tell you, the feeling of being able to drag an enemy into the murder zone with that grapple hook is, tip-top stuff. You'll have seen the chain gun in action previously during the course of this video, but in terms of what the alt fire actually does, well, for one, it drastically reduces the fire rate, but to compensate, spits out 10 bullets per blast, essentially transforming it into some kind of highly accurate auto-shotty, which, as it happens, is also real good at making lower tier enemies go splat. The rocket launcher upgrade is wonderfully straightforward. It's essentially 2 other rocket launchers sellotaped to the bottom of your pre-existing one, allowing you to fire off a triple volley with the alt. I'd say, as usual, exercise caution in enclosed spaces, but also keep a wary eye out for the Wraith enemy type. These have the ability to teleport directly in front of your face, and have the unfortunate habit of doing so just as you pull the trigger. The plasma rifle satisfyingly transforms into a railgun with the alt fire unlocked. This expends 6 cells per shot, which in all honesty is a pretty low price to pay considering it packs a fairly hefty punch. Now I don't know if it's just me, but the BFG here feels off somehow, and that may be something to do with the primary, which probably isn't quite as powerful as its vanilla counterpart, but the secondary also provides me with a slight amount of confusion. You see, this thing can blast on as little as 100 cells, but if you've got 600 kicking around in a tank, it will use 600 cells in that alt fire blast, taking out a lot of enemies in the process. But I think my problem with it is I just don't quite understand what exactly it's doing. Is it doing it in a radius? Is it doing it on enemies directly in front of me in visual range, much like how the vanilla BFG operates? It just feels oddly tricky to get my head around, and the last thing I should have to be doing with the BFG is thinking about how it works. I should be pointing it in the direction of everything I want to kill, and be safe in the knowledge that it's going to do a pretty understandable specific thing. Mercifully, no such confusion exists when wielding the Crucible. It's a magical laser sword that's sole purpose is to yeet demons into the next plane of existence. And thanks to a bug, I was able to yeet to my heart's content. Normally, you have 3 swings of this thing, then it's got to go back in the holster and charge for a while until you get the prompt that says it's ready again. But in the meantime, it's pretty damn good for thwacking Archviles to death. Oh yeah, this mod also has loot boxes in it, but fear not, these are not the same surprise mechanics that so plague other video games. This is simply a reward for achieving certain conditions within a given level. In this case, this loot box was granted to me through defeating a particularly tough enemy, whereas others can be unlocked by doing such tasks as killing every single enemy on the level, which fortuitously in Equinox is actually quite easy in certain transitional hub levels. What you get inside of them, however, isn't always strictly guaranteed. On that front, I've been fairly fortunate, only useful items spilling forth from those boxes, but less fortunate players may occasionally find themselves dealing with a box full of poop. Oh no, I'm being serious about that one. If anything, I'm quite impressed with regards to how smoothly everything in this current form of Doom EXP comes together. In lesser hands, this could have been a complete goddamn mess, but no, there's a lot of good structure here, and if I recall correctly, this is pretty significantly different from the last time I actually experienced it. So in its preceding form, it doled out upgrades and advancement based purely on how much XP you'd acquired and at what rank you'd attained. So, for example, you couldn't use the alt fire on, say, the chain gun here until you've reached, maybe, say, rank 15. But now, there's just a lot more control in the hands of the player. Granted, that does somewhat manifest as a fair amount of acclimatization to be done when you first boot this mod up, what with regards to keybinds, abilities, and menus, but once you get past that, the core gameplay here is more than strong enough to keep that momentum going. I've also got to appreciate the high degree of restraint when it comes to the enemy types that you'll encounter during the course of an average Doom EXP playthrough. There's sometimes a temptation in gameplay mods to overstuff the bestiary with alternate types that do strange and interesting things, but here there seems to have been a high degree of consideration to how those variants will actually affect the combat. The Wraith, in particular, certainly an enemy type that comes to mind when I think of good examples. But yeah, overall, there is a heck of a lot to like about Doom EXP. A lot of choice, a lot of movement abilities, really gonna have to find some good excuse to put that dash, double jump, and wall grab to work at some point. And yeah, there's even a goddamn shoulder cannon in this. You know the shoulder cannon from Doom Eternal? I managed to miss using it for the entire duration of Equinox, but that's there as well, replete with multiple grenade types, so yeah, don't forget about that one if you decide to give this a whirl for yourself. But there you have it, Doom EXP, an all-around good egg of a gameplay mod, and if you found yourself suitably intrigued during the course of this video, you'll find the link, as usual, in the description below. While I'm at it, I'd like to give a great big thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel and for helping to make content like this possible. If you're interested in lending a hand yourself, maybe you'd like to see your name in the credits, maybe you'd like to gain early access to my videos before anyone else, well, if that's the case, you'll find the link to my Patreon page also in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mod you'd like to see me cover in future editions of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.